Creating the rendered image. Now that we've created a 3D view, I have my living room 3D view, and I'm ready to render. I'm going to go up to my View tab, and I'm going to go to Render. I'm going to click on Render. It brings me up my Render dialog box, and I have here the region that's going to be rendered. I have all my settings set up, and now all I need to do is hit the Render button. And when I hit Render, it's going to start the rendering process. It will show me the percent done, render time, how many lights there are, etc. And close the dialog box when complete. So if I have this on, then this box will go away when it's completed here. And this dialog box will go away. And then so what we're seeing here is we're seeing a square go by. This square goes by here, and it's actually how many processors. So if I have one processor on my computer, it'll be one square. If I have a dual processor, I'll have two squares. Quad processor, 4 squares. And so the speed of your CPU really matters here on how fast you render in its calculations. And so it's a matter of quality versus time and file size. So the higher quality, the longer the time will take. Renderings can take quite a while. It's not unheard of to be in the hours type of thing. So you can see here that it's generating mine, and I'm almost done. And I'm going to close my dialog box, and there is my rendering. Now you can see right off the bat that it doesn't have enough light. I get enough light coming through the windows, but that's it. And that's usually the case in most situations. If you have a problem, you need to add more lights. Also, if I go back into my rendering and I go to adjust exposure after I created the rendering, I can adjust my exposure, and it's actually on the dark side right now. My first one in the exposure value, it's very dark. If I kick that up to be brighter, I'm just going to slide it over to be brighter, and I'm going to hit apply. You can see that, yeah, it's pretty bright. And I'll just slide it back over here, and I'll hit apply, and I'll hit OK. And I'm going to come over here and go back to my realistic. Somehow I got into wireframe there. You can see in realistic now, I adjusted my rendering here, and usually I will get it right off the bat, but I'm going to rerun it, but usually don't have to. When I go to adjust exposure, I can adjust my different values here so that I get what I like in these particular ones. So exposure value is the over amount of light. The highlights are the differences between the dark and the light. And the midtones is the amount of brightness and darkness of the areas in the middle, not the dark and not the light. The shadows, how much light do we have in the shadows? The white point, if it's a warmer photo, that means it has more oranges and reds and yellows. If it's a cooler, it has more blues and greens. And then the saturation is how intense the colors are. So it's very colorish, a lot of color. Then it's up here in the intense. If it has very little color, like black and white or gray, it's down here in the lower end. So I'm going to just hit apply and say alright, and usually it will adjust it right on the spot, and you don't have to make any changes. I'm going to rerun mine again, and now with those particular changes, see what happens. Now remember, I can always add more lights or change the wattage of my bulb. I only have a 100-watt light bulb right now. I could kick that up a little bit, or I could add more lights to the room. And typically you got to add more lights. If you walked in one room at night and only had one light on, it's pretty dark to take a photo in that room. But now with my adjusting of the settings, you can see how actually I went the other way with it. Now it's too much light. So so now I got to go back in and adjust my exposure again and say, well, okay, it's too much light. Now I got to bring it down and find a little more darkness, and I'll go with just a little bit more darker highlights and say apply. And now I see how it instantly updated. And so at this point, what I really need to do, I get so much light coming through the windows, I don't have any lights in the corners of the room. I need to put more lighting in the room at this point. So I'm going to say OK, and then I'm going to close my rendering dialog box at this point.